God Encounters. We're so glad you're tuned in to part 2 with Carissa Gobble today. We heard first about her background living in third world countries, some of the struggles that she had to overcome. In this segment, I asked Carissa to share with us her knowledge on toxin-free living, no parabens, etc. And she's very informative. So I just want to give her time to go through this. So, welcome back.
Thanks.
For part 2.
Yeah.
So you started a home front community. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the Homefront community was kind of a passion project as I started learning so much about what's in the products that we buy in our stores and one that we put on our bodies, things that we put in our food and eat in our in our meals,
Yes.
And just the surrounding environmental toxins that we're not very aware of. So especially as a mom, I think my journey started as a mother, and looking into having a home birth. That kind of like opened this can of worms and this little rabbit hole that I've continually working more and more deeper into. And just it opened up this whole mindset of, wow, the general narrative that we're told may not always be true, or we can't always just take things for granted.
Right.
And so the Homefront community was the idea that, as especially for women and mothers who tend to be, I mean, statistics show we tend to be the people that make the most purchasing decisions in a household. And as moms, and I'm watching this over and over again with a bunch of my friends now that having babies, they're all like, okay, well, now that I have a baby, tell me about this.
Yeah, right.
Where before they didn't care.
Right.
But now when you have introduced children into your life, you're like, there's that nurturing thing, that protective thing.
Yes.
So the Homefront community is a place where I wanted to encourage moms and women that you get to defend your home. You get to defend your home. And this is like a front lines thing of like, no, I'm not letting this in my house. And to encourage moms in their motherhood journey, but also just to educate on what is out there and how you can defend yourself, because you can't make good purchasing decisions if you don't know.
Right, right. And you've really done your research, I have to say. So the picture, if we could show that of the Homefront community. So is that you with a baby?
That is me with my youngest, who's a lot older now.
I remember showing this to my friend, and she said, well, that says a lot right there. There's a lot in that picture. So
Yes.
tell me why.
I chose that. So for me, it's also a very spiritual image for me of just looking at motherhood. I remember really struggling with motherhood, especially when I was pregnant with this baby, the third one, and really sick in mornings. It was just like this never-ending motherhood journey. Like, is it ever going to end? Am I ever going to sleep again? You know? And the Lord was just really showing me a lot of how this is kind of like a battle. Like if you're protecting your children, you know, you're creating this environment in your home that they can be raised in to be little warriors eventually, you know, out there in the world. And so just that imagery of being this like home front protector, this home front defender, on all the fronts, spiritually and physically, really spoke to my heart and really made me feel empowered as a mother. So I did a little photo shoot with a friend to kind of try and encompass that image of what does a mom really look like in the spirit almost, and just the fact that we do a lot more than we can see.
Yes, good. All right.
Yeah, so that, as far as the toxin-free stuff, that physical stuff, I think a lot of us, and you talk a lot about the spiritual side of things on your show, and so I think a lot of us there's a lot of information about that, some really amazing books. The Homefront community is really there. I spend a lot of my time more so on the practical side of how do we defend ourselves, because there's a lot of things out there that we're not aware of. So for instance, we haven't passed legislature to regulate the products that get put on in our shelves, like shampoos, lotions, in 80 years. And the only legislation we do have is about 1.5 pages long, and that's it for regulating things. We have guidelines.
Scary.
We have guidelines. The FDA gives guidelines of how much lead is this, and there's more laws protecting some of the products that children are exposed to. But all children eat off of plates and dinnerware and stuff, and there's more and more testing being done finding lead and heavy metals in just like this one. So especially if it wasn't made in the USA. So
which a lot of them
are. Exactly. So there's things like that we just don't know about. And so you're consuming these heavy metals or a lot of chemicals that are in our products now. And if you think about 80 years ago, how many products were actually out there on the market and what ingredients did we use back then versus what ingredients we've created now. So one thing, this was a very scary statistics, but American babies are born pre-diluted with more than 200 chemicals in their blood, 180 which are known to cause cancer in humans or animals. This is a statistic taken from the documentary called The Devil We Know, and it was looking at Teflon and DuPont, the company DuPont. There's actually a whole narrative movie coming out about this whole big cover-up thing that the company did. So if you have nonstick cookware, there's these chemicals called PFOAs that were seeping into the food, and the company knew that it was causing problems, that their employees were having issues, animals were having issues, and they just didn't do anything about it. And now 99% of us have this chemical in our blood, and it doesn't come out because it's in like water resistant sprays, fire retardants, anything that's like kind of that non-stick or like water resistant coatings, those types of things. It all has this chemical because it works. It's amazing, you know, what science can give us. But there was not enough research done on what it does long term in your body and accumulating. So this was, if we look at this, we'll see a lot of different things that, whoops, sorry. Products that a typical you'll find in like shampoo, hairspray, foundation, body lotion, those types of things that we're not really aware of. And so you think of the accumulative effect of these ingredients and chemicals in our body, because there was a study done that showed within about 26 seconds, 60% or more, about 64% of what you put on your body gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And so I don't know how many studies have actually backed up that statistic, but just the fact that they found what you're putting on you isn't just going on top of you, it's going inside of you too. And instead of like when you ingest food, you have a digestive system that can filter out. I mean, we can throw up if we like have something poison, you know, food poisoning, right? What happens? It comes back out. Our bloodstream has a lot less of those filters for us. So that's where we're seeing a lot of concern and a growing community moving towards this like green movement, right? And there's a couple resources here that you can look at that are really helpful for deciding what you want to purchase. The EWG Environmental Working Group has a really great website, and they have an app called the Healthy Living app. The Think Dirty app is also a really great app you can take it into your store and scan a barcode, and it will pull up a score for you. I'll show you, this is some of the products that I used to use, and their scores, they're at about an 8. So frequently we all think of Mrs. Meyer's as a very natural line, but it scores really high because of fragrance. And fragrance is now being considered kind of like the same thing as secondhand smoke. There's some studies coming out there. It is a industry loophole word that is protected because it's a trade secret. So you don't have to disclose what of up to almost 4,000 chemicals that one word could contain.
That's crazy.
And most of those are linked to carcinogens and things like that. So it's just very ambiguous and very toxic to our system. And more research is coming out about that. So a lot of these products, the main offender is fragrance or perfume, and even natural fragrance can mask a couple different terms. So it's really, I mean, if it's not just naturally, like, if you have put lavender in something, it's going to smell like lavender. You don't need to have to say natural fragrance. If it has natural fragrance, it means they've added something else to it to give it more fragrance. It's not just the lavender in there anymore. So, and a really big term that gets thrown around a lot now is non-toxic. And so non-toxic is not a regulated term. And for you to be able to, technically for you to be able to say non-toxic, I shouldn't say it's not regulated, you have to prove that 49%, I think, of the test subjects did not have a lethal reaction. So you could have 48% had a lethal reaction to this ingredient, and it could be considered non-toxic.
Oh my gosh.
So,
wow.
So some people are moving more towards like toxin-free, but that is also not a regulated term, but it is one that is showing you that this person is aware that there's a difference between non-toxic and toxin-free. But a lot of companies are picking up on this now as far as marketing goes, right? And so you look on the shelves and people are starting to be aware. There's more news articles about, you know, big companies being sued for something or other. And so people are becoming more aware. Actually, it was like a 2 or 3% jump in just like the green beauty movement specifically recently as far as sales. It's a $200 billion industry, and 3% of it is going more towards the green. That's a big jump for the industry. That's a lot of money. And so companies are paying attention to this, and they're starting to do what we call greenwashing, and they will move things more towards like white bottles with little green leaves and say paraben free or things like that. But if you turn it over and you actually look at the ingredients, there's still a lot of really, really concerning things. You can't be where you can't pay attention to just the label on the marketing on the outside. You really have to become a steward of the ingredients. So like parabens, for instance, they mimic estrogen, and they've been, there was a study that found 90% of breast cancer tissue that they inspected had at least one paraben in it, and 60% had at least 2 types of paraben in it. And so that's where you're getting that marketing, paraben free, right? It's a very cheap preservative. That's what its purpose is to preserve the product. But it mimics, it's so close, the molecular structure, to estrogen. And so the theory is that your body's pulling that into those parts of your body, and it's wreaking havoc on your system. So another preservative coming more frequently is the preservative called phenoxyethanol. And phenoxyethanol is very often found in greenwashed products or things that are tout that they're natural. They took the parabens out, they put phenoxyethanol in. But it is a core allergen, according to the American Dermatologist Society. And so it's another one that I just avoid it. And it could be linked to neurotoxicity too. And so there's just a lot of these chemicals. So I have a Blacklist ingredient from this company called Crunchy that's really on top of a lot of like natural toxin-free stuff, really pushing the boundaries on this. And so they've come up with this blacklisted ingredient list that I like to reference when I'm shopping, and some things sound really natural, like Japanese honeysuckle. I know,
it sounds like, hey, that's something good, right? It's some kind of flower or something that's a natural fragrance.
Yeah, but it's one of those, just like poison ivy, it's natural, right? But it's not good for you. So Japanese honeysuckle has the same molecular structure as like a paraben does. And so it's doing kind of the same thing, so similar to estrogen, that's where the problem comes in with that one. So even though it says it's a natural, it's actually not really that great. So I love to use this list. I also like to use the EWG app. Sometimes you can just scan it and it'll give you like a red or a 1 or a 0 or a 10 being really bad for you. But sometimes it doesn't show up, you know, your product doesn't show up, especially if it's a lesser known mainstream product. And so then I have to go back to the ingredients one by one and just copy and paste it into the EWG website, and it'll pull up all the data on that particular ingredient. And then you can make a decision of whether or not you want that in your home and on your skin.
Wow. Well, thank you for doing all that work. That's crazy, but I mean, that list alone, I wish it was huge because it's little.
It keeps growing. It keeps growing.
You know, it fits in my purse, but to get it out, I'd have to have a magnifying glass probably to read it. But it's very informative, and I really appreciate it. It's very handy. And that was something that you gave out at the Toxin-Free Living Crunchy Night, which is a skincare line that I'm now using. And
yeah, it's one of those really great alternatives. And so on the home front, I have a home front community, like it's called a home front blog. And so I have a lot of lists of safe swaps, so things that you can swap out.
Yes. Could you show us some of those? I'd like to see some of that.
Let's see if I can pull that up.
Did I jump ahead on you? There's something else you want to show you?
No, I'll pull it up here. So the Homefront blog is, well, I don't have the internet to show you.
Sorry.
But it has a lot of really great resources for changing out products in your house. So say you run out of your shampoo, then you can go to the Homefront blog, look under personal safe swaps, and see a bunch of lists of really safe shampoos that you can use. And I try to keep that updated because things sometimes get bought out by other companies.
Right.
And so they can change the formula on you if you're not careful.
Yes.
Because again, big companies are seeing this trend towards green, natural. They see the consumers going in that direction, and so they want to acquire those already companies. So
yeah, I've tried to pay attention to that myself. You know, I'm now looking, okay, paraben free. I need to look for these things. I changed to a different toothpaste recently too. So I'm like, I'm getting bolder. It's a charcoal kind of, you know, toothpaste. I found it at Whole Foods. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying this out.
Great.
But little by little, I was shocked when you did your toxin-free living. We did a little test. She gave us a little test. How much do you think you're, you know, what was the wording?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how crunchy do you feel? Crunchy is an adjective that describes like how consciously, I do have a slide for that. We can show you that one.
And so I'm thinking, I'm feeling really good about myself. Well, you know, I'm really good at, you know, when I shop for my family, I'm very good at, you know, I get, you know, organic and this, that, and the other. And then I started going down this list and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not as good as I thought I was.
I know.
So it's very eye-opening.
Yeah. So crunchy means socially, environmentally, and health conscious, to seek knowledge, become empowered, and transform lifestyles. So it's, yeah, that was the scale that we had you on. So, but it was very, most people are like, oh yeah, I know, I buy, you know, Mrs. Myers. And I'm like, well, that's really toxic for you still. And that's a greenwashed one.
But see, it's tricky because we don't know. Most people out there don't know. They just read the label and we trust. We trust.
Yes, we do.
And then I've heard, you know, even Marlisa said that like in, you know, Europe, a lot of those things that they won't even have on the market. So they have much stricter regulations. They really care about people's health there.
They do. They have a lot more laws for that. So they actually ban about 1,300 chemicals in the EU, the European Union. We have about 33 in the U.S. that are banned. In use. So, but even though something may tout, oh, we're up to European standards, it's not always still okay. Even the European Union doesn't ban everything that's really bad for you. So it's definitely a great indicator, but it's not the whole picture. It's really about just learning to educate yourself and be a conscious consumer is what I like to be. Be a conscious consumer versus a passive consumer. And looking at too just how even with the containers that your products are in, what your containers are made of. The ingredients could be wonderful, but is it in a plastic bottle that's going to seep into the product over time from heat, you know, in your shower? That breaks down the plastics. So there's those types of things too that are really important to pay attention to and look out for. So it's just that consciously thinking about your purchasing decisions and what's in your products versus just blindly taking them on faith.
And that was another thing that I'm more aware of now is the smell, the fragrance. If it's really strong, you know, there's probably something in there you shouldn't have because it's going to go into your body somehow or on your skin. Another thing that I think is, you know, a lot of people don't think about is to think of your skin as one big cell. Right? Because like you were saying, it goes into your bloodstream a lot of times and it goes through your skin. So it's just made me much more aware of, you know, what I'm putting on my body, what I'm putting into my body, even washing my clothes with it. I wear on my body, you know. My husband keeps saying, "Are you really going to be one of those?" Yes, honey, I'm becoming one of those because I want to live a little longer and be a little more healthy.
We don't want to give God too much of a job to take care of us, keep us alive, right?
Right. So,
and it's all just the little baby steps. You take it one thing at a time.
Yes.
I ran out of my toothpaste, so what am I going to switch it with?
Yeah.
You know, and for me too, you can go the extreme way. You can start living in fear. You know, and that's not what you want to. That's not where we want to be. You know, so it's very clear in the Bible. We're to be anxious about nothing. You know, and so for me, it's just I want to know. I want to know what's in there. I don't want to be blind to it. So if I know what's in it and I feel peace about using it, then I'm going to use it. You know, He said we could tread on snakes, be bit by a snake, and be okay. But to push that to the limit, and be like, oh well, I'm going to eat fast food every day. You know, don't think that's in the Bible. So.
No. No, definitely not. So are there any that come to your mind, since we can't pull it up right now, maybe we can show later, where you do the side-by-side comparisons that you can think of?
Yeah, so like our toothpaste, for example. So frequently we think of like Colgate or Sensodyne is like a nicer one.
Yeah.
And, those all have like carrageenan in them and a lot of other chemicals in them. A really great swap out is called Dr. Bright. And so that one, you can just find it on Amazon. I have a link to it on the Homefront blog. And so that's a really easy one to do. Deodorant is probably a really big one, and I have multiple options on the Homefront blog. I usually use doTERRA's one. And that one is really difficult too because the pores in your armpits are trying to keep things out. So a lot of people are like, I don't want to let go of my antiperspirant, but your body needs to get rid of toxins through that way. So deodorants and antiperspirants are actually, that's a very porous area of your body, and so it absorbs a lot more. So whatever's in that product is really, that's actually one of the probably the most important first things you would want to swap out is your deodorant, just because it's so porous of a part of your body. Another really great one is dryer sheets are one of the most toxic things in your house. And I was reading today too of just like some of the, there's regulations on like, you know, like on our cars and how much they can emit through the exhaust, right? We have to get it tested. Exactly. But they noticed that the same kind of, some of those same toxins you get out of your car are coming out of your dryer vents. And there's no regulations for what is allowed in your house. They don't regulate the kind of levels in your house. I mean, government control. Like, thank you. I don't want you regulating my house. I appreciate that. Right. But those types of things where the dryer sheets are contributing to a really toxic environment. So a really great swap out for that is wool dryer balls, actually, and it saves you money too. Where you just keep reusing them. And my kids like to play with them.
And you can put essential oils
you can put it,
on
exactly.
them. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Or you can make a little spray with water, put some essential oil in there and spray it on.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Any more that come to mind?
There's a lot. I think one I'm still struggling to find right now is a contact lens solution. I'm still having a hard time finding one that's like really, really clean. But the one I think I'm using right now is like Clean and Clear. It's a weird system where you have to like open these two compartments and put the little things in and fill it up, and it's a lot more complicated of a process. But yeah, and then as far as like, you know, the skincare and makeup, I use the Crunchy line. It's the highest because I mean, for women, we like things that it has to work too, right? It's not just, it can't just be safe, it has to work. So it's a higher scale product that performs really well, but it's really safe, and they're really pushing a lot of boundaries, and it took them 4 years, I think, to come out with an eyeliner formula they were comfortable with. So those types of brands, I really love to get behind those brands. Dr. Bonner's soap is a huge, really great one for just replacing, you know, you can replace your dish soap with it, your laundry soap with it. It's a Castile soap. It's really great. You can get it in bulk, like gallon jugs. And I think it's actually even a Christian company that owns it. It's got like scripture verses around the bottles. It's really fun.
Wow.
So Dr. Bronner's is really great. I'll make hand soap out of that one, and that one you can find on Amazon. It's a really great safe swap out.
You're a good Amazon girl.
I love Amazon.
You get all those deals
the modern mother here. Why go to the store?
Well, it's great. I mean, it's great that you have that resource and you know that they're there. Well, real quick, we have a little bit more time. Is there anything that you can think of, another swap, safe swap? What about something in the kitchen, like mayonnaise?
Yeah, so as far as like on the food side of things, there's a lot of research coming out now showing a lot of the animal products. So if you're something that has an animal product in it, is not the greatest for your body. Your body doesn't process it as well. So just limiting it. I think your gut bacteria on a 5, if more than 5 to 10% of your intake and food consumption is meat and dairy, then the bad bacteria in your gut tends to overflow. So
what was the percentage on that again?
5 to 10% of your diet. So,
wow.
So when you're having half of your diet is a steak, and you're not balancing that out with fiber-rich foods that help promote the good bacteria in your gut, you can end up having a lot of other body issues because it's too much.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like that. So for us, we just tried to avoid it. We still love our steaks, we love our hamburgers, we eat meat and cheese, but we just don't have it as much as we used to as we learn a lot of these things. And part of the issue too is some of these things have hormones put into them and chemicals are invested in them. So looking for, was this grass fed? You know, is it free range? Those kinds of things are really important. What's really interesting is it wasn't until the 80s and 90s where they started introducing pesticides and genetically modified food. It's more of a recent thing that in all the extra hormones and things like that. So just being again, it's that conscious consumerism versus passive consumerism. So just because it's on the shelf in the store doesn't necessarily mean it's safe for you. So take the extra time to turn it over, look at it, read those ingredients, and ask the Holy Spirit, do I have peace about this?
I've done that before. I've done that. Like, tell me, is this good or not? I don't know. Let's show we're coming to an end here, but let's show your Homefront blog, or community page one more time. Homefront. So I encourage you to friend Carissa and get informed. Get informed for what's out there and what you can do better for your family, for yourself. We all want to live in better health. So thanks for tuning in today. Have a great day.